Welcome, Pewter Report readers and listeners, to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. I'm Mark Cook, along with nobody. Yeah, we're working on that. John should be joining us pretty soon. So this might be like a 45-minute soliloquy of me just rambling on. No, what we'll do obviously is we'll take your questions and those kind of things. I think John's having some technical difficulties with the internet at his home. We'll find out soon enough, but we wanted to go ahead and get signed on since we were going to be on at 4 o'clock. Obviously, plenty of Buccaneer news to talk about. Just now, recently, we just put up a story on Ross Cockrell returning to the Buccaneers on a 2-year deal. We confirmed that with the Buccaneers, first reported by Greg Auman. We were able to confirm with the team and the organization that Ross will be back. Sometimes I call him Russ. I don't know why, but Ross Cockrell will be back with the Buccaneers, which is good because depth is important. We've all talked about the 22 starters, right, that the Buccaneers have returned from the Super Bowl winning team. But it's not just those guys. There's other guys that were important key contributors to this football team. Cockrell was one of those guys that participated in 12 games last year for Tampa Bay. Of course, he's an 8-year veteran, or this will be his 8th season in the NFL. Drafted originally by Buffalo in the 4th round, a former Duke Blue Devil, bounced around with different teams, Pittsburgh, most recently with the Panthers, and of course now with the Buccaneers in his 2nd season. So we will be talking about that. We can answer your questions, get those in the chat right now. And again, hopefully John will be able to join us here shortly. If not, you'll have to look at my ugly face for the next 30 or 45 minutes, but that's okay. I'm 50 years old. I've come to accept my looks at this point. It's okay. I could be worse, right? Do I look 50? Not a day over 49, in my opinion. Anyway, get those questions up. I don't have the fancy Celsius commercial, so I'm just going to have to I was going to say free ball it, but that would be the wrong word. That's a completely different thing. That's a different sponsor. That's Manscaped. I'm going to freelance it. That's the word that I'm trying to come up with. And if John joins us, we can have certainly the commercial. But anyways, this podcast, as always, sponsored by our title sponsors, our good friends over at Celsius. Today's choice of drink is the sparkling grapefruit. A number of great flavors for this great energy drink. Now, again, energy drinks sometimes get a bad rap because of the amount of sugar and different things that are added to it. This is natural. And there's not not any sugar. You're not going to have that crash that you get with a lot of energy drinks. So make sure to check out Celsius. You can go to pewterreport.com. We usually have we have an ad up on there where you can click on there. I think it directs you directly to Amazon where you can buy plenty of product. And also a store locator. If you go to Celsius as well, you can find out exactly in your area, if you're not in the Tampa Bay area, where you can find some Celsius, but you can always order it directly from Amazon too. I have tried a number of the different flavors. I'm a simple guy. I like orange. I like grapefruit. The guava one, I think it's a kiwi guava, is good. The fellas like the pomegranate and the blueberry. That's a little too fruity for my taste. But anyway, check out Celsius. Good friends of the show, proud sponsors of the Pewter Report podcast. Edward Fernandez, since we don't have the commercial, we'll spend a little bit more time here. Edward Fernandez says, peach vibe is what he digs. Yeah, peach is not bad. I'm a big knee-high peach guy. And again, that proves that I'm 50 years old. Anybody under 40 probably has no idea what I'm talking about. Knee-high peach was the best soda in the history of the world. There's no argument when it comes to that. Anyway, we'll get rid of that now. No more about the play reaction with a great comment. Does Solo Mark interrupt himself? Hang on. I've got to say something. Yes, see, I just did interrupt myself there. Anyway, I'm not used to doing these things. Not used to doing this thing solo. Anyway, hopefully John will be able to join us here shortly. But anyway, check out Celsius. Go to Celsius. Go to our ads on pewterreport.com and pick yourself up a Celsius. And I'm pretty sure that you'll be a big fan, as we all are here at pewterreport.com. So, Ross, I don't know why I've always called him Russ for some reason. I don't know. Maybe Rusty from the National Lampoon's movies. But anyway, it's Ross Cockrell. and he's going to be back for the Buccaneers, which I think is a really good move. Don't have the terms yet. You guys that are on Twitter, it may start popping up pretty soon. Sometimes those things pop up pretty soon, but at the time of the podcast, I didn't have anything as far as the terms go, but we do know that it is a 2-year deal. So Buccaneers will have him back on the field again this year. Again, you hope, again, you like Ross, you like having backup guys, but they're backups for a reason, right? They're not as good as the starters. You got Jamel Dean, you've got Sean Murphy Bunting, you've got, of course, Carlton Davis. Those three guys are going to be on the field most of the time. But, if one of those guys go down, it's nice to have a guy like Cockrell, who's been in the league for a long time, who understands this defense. And just understands, he's the veteran guy. I mean, think about it. In that secondary, there's not a lot of veteran guys. I mean, Jordan Whitehead might be the second most tenured guy on the team. I guess Carlton Davis now, but Cockrell is certainly the most tenured guy, and having that veteran presence is important. Speaking of another veteran presence, Giovani Bernard from the Cincinnati Bengals. Buccaneers picked him up on yesterday. That's a signing, a 1-year deal. I think a lot of people will be happy about that. I was one of those guys that was really advocating for James White from New England. He re-signed with the team. I think a 1-year deal, $2.5 million, something like that, with the Patriots. I thought really that he was going to be the guy that would be that third down role to take over what the Buccaneers kind of hoped LaShawn McCoy was going to be able to provide him last year. And obviously he just didn't have any gas left in the tank. So anyway, so Bernard is that guy. Again, he's not a young buck by any stretch. I believe he was drafted in 2013, but a talented football player, really good pass catcher. And I think I saw a stat on Twitter yesterday that of current NFL running backs, I think he's fourth in receptions. I think James White is second. I can't remember who first and third was, but he's in the top 5 as far as receptions by NFL running backs since 2013. And look, that's what this football team really needs. They need, they need a guy that they can count on to be that outlet for Tom Brady on third down. The Buccaneers struggled last year in that capacity, certainly with Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones. They're just not natural pass catching running backs. And I've talked about this on the podcast before. We all have played, right, like backyard football with your cousins and your relatives and neighborhood kids. And there were just some guys that just couldn't catch. I mean, they were fast. Maybe they could block, maybe they could do other things, but they just couldn't catch a football. I mean, it's a natural talent to be able to catch a football. You can get better at it. I think Ronald Jones certainly is better at it than when he came into the league as a rookie, and he's gotten better at it, but it's just not ever going to be his forte in the league. And I think that's where a guy like Giovani Bernard really fits in, because we know he is a heck of a pass catching running back. Don't know how he is in pass protection. A guy like John Ledyard can probably tell us a little bit more about that. I see John trying to sign in right now, and I'm sure everybody's happy because they're probably already tired of listening to me just talk and go on and on and on. So,
well, this is probably going to drop me out, Mark. It's probably going to drop me out here in a little bit based on what I've learned of Spectrum since moving to Florida. My goodness, I don't know how y'all do. I had a person out here today because it's been this mystery issue, right? And I know people have noticed it. What's the connection sound like now as I'm talking to you?
Yeah, you're really good right now. Let's keep it that way.
It has been unbelievable. But I had a technician come out today because it hasn't been a normal issue. Router, modem, internet speeds, all that stuff has been great the whole time. It's been an issue they can't figure out. So somebody showed up today. They took a look at everything and they were like, we fixed the problem. There was water getting into one of these things, blah, blah, blah. It's been fine all day. 15 minutes before we go on the show, it's cutting in and out. So it'll probably drop me during the show. You'll probably have to carry things again, but I don't know how y'all do it with Spectrum down here, man. They are brutal. I've not been impressed.
It's one of those things. It's you take what you can get. I'm fortunate where I am right now over in Eastern Hillsborough County, Brandon area. Spectrum has been really, really solid. Now, every once in a while, it'll just drop off, blip out for a few seconds. But I'm not even going to call and complain about that, John, because if that's the worst thing that happens, I can live with a 30-second, blip of the internet radar. But speeds are fine. Service has always been decent, but it is what it is. It's what we've got.
Too. Like this area is all brand new, so that's
Yeah.
probably has something to do with it too. They're probably still figuring out their signal. Like my whole neighborhood is all brand new houses and area, and so they're probably still figuring out their signals.
Well, wait till when they're building a new home here in a month or two near you, and they just cut through the line, and then you're down for 3 or 4 days. Yeah, that's
definitely
a
live on air. Yeah, live on air, it's gonna happen for sure. So
yeah, with Bruce Arians as a guest or something too. Not even me. It'll be somebody like Bruce Arians. But we just briefly were talking about the return of Ross, not Russ Cockrell, what he means to the football team. Obviously going to be kind of that fourth cornerback behind Murphy Bunting, certainly Carlton and Jamel. But, providing that veteran presence in the locker room, a guy that's been in the league now, be entering his 8th season. And I was trying to think just off the top of my head, you could probably think a little bit more clear than me. But other than him, who's the most veteran guy? Jordan Whitehead or Carlton Davis? That's about it on this football team.
Right. I think having Cockrell back is big because it gives you, again, that flexibility for the draft, right? You would have been 3 corners is thin in today's NFL, and that's really all that they've got right now. And obviously don't want to discount Herb. I think they'd be fine going into next season with Ross Cockrell and Herb and being those 5. But really what you have to ask yourself is, okay, now if we have Ross Cockrell back in the fold, we don't feel like we have to do anything. And that's really the position the Bucs have wanted to get to, right? Cockrell played well last year. They love the personality, I think the work ethic he brings to the room, a veteran. I think it's a lot of things that they value in those positions, the ability to play inside and outside. So I'm pumped about Ross Cockrell being back. You can never have enough good corners on your team. Wouldn't preclude me from drafting one first round if it happened to be the best player available. It's just the way the Bucs are right now, Mark. This is crazy.
Yeah.
Where does this team even have room for a rookie to make the team? It's hard. They might honestly end up trading up and giving up some of their day 3 picks because they don't even have space.
That's something that I was thinking about was when we did on the roundtable on Sunday was who our draft crush was. Everybody knows I love Najee Harris, right? Of course, he's my major draft crush. But another guy I started thinking that I like a lot is Landon Dickerson, of course, from Alabama. Now, here's a guy that might be the perfect fit. Number one, because it may be a need a year or two down the road, depending on what Ryan Jensen does, if he wants to continue playing, if the Buccaneers feel he's still there. But I really think that, with a guy like Jensen, if you've got a guy like Dickerson in the fold, give him a year to kind of sit back, recover from that ACL, be ready to go in 2022. And you're paying him $3 million a year. If you re-sign Ryan Jensen, you're looking at least another probably $8 to $10 million because I think he's making 10 now. He'll probably want to raise maybe, especially if he plays as well as he did. So that may be the guy. And that kind of answers James Berry's question, who says, I'm going to look and watch and see how long it takes Mark Cook to say we should draft a null player in the draft. Okay, set,
he
go.
Counts. Yeah,
James,
Dickerson counts.
He counts. He was a null, right? But it's not because he was a Seminole. I just love this guy's attitude, his spirit. He's a mauler. John, we talk about football players that play football not because they're good, but because they love the game of football. Landon's both, right? He's good and he loves football. You can tell a guy who has joy playing football. And those are the kind of guys that you want on your football team. That's the reason why Tom Brady's going to be playing at age 44 when the fall rolls around.
Right. Yeah,
because he loves football.
And it's the like you want to automatically, you look at Ryan Jensen and you say, okay, if we're going to lose him, how do we replace a lot of what he brings to the room and to the field? And I think that definitely speaks to a guy like Dickerson. He has the ability to do those kinds of things. He's physically what they look for. I think athletically they are not as concerned as other teams about those types of players because they don't run this wide zone type of scheme. I think that but physically he's what they want, and mentally is what they want, and then character-wise he's what they want too. So I think you're spot on, Mark. It would be shocking to me at this point. I really think if the Bucs don't draft a front 7 or front, I don't even say front 7. If they don't draft a defensive or offensive lineman, a trench player in the first round, now I'll be surprised. After Cockrell and Bernard, to me, not that they can't still take corner. I like Greg Newsome. I just don't think he's going to be there. I don't think he's going to be there. I don't think Caleb Farley's going to be there. So I think it's going to be, you're going to have corners later in the draft? Could they take corner second round? Maybe. I mean, anyway, like everybody else, I'm just trying to figure this thing out. Like they just don't have needs.
Yeah.
It's absolutely bonkers. I don't remember the last time we saw a team like this.
If I had to bet, and I'm not a betting man, but if I did, I would go to my bookie, of course. But if I were a betting man, I would almost say that this team looks to trade back, John. And I say that because there are teams that are going to want that 32nd pick because that gives them that fifth-year option on whoever that player is. There are obviously plenty of teams that have a lot more need than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do. And maybe they pick up some picks for next year because they have a ton of free agents next year. The thought of them keeping guys every year, this was an anomaly, right? This was not the norm. As good as Mike Greenberg and Jason Light are, for them to be able to re-sign all of their players, to have all 22 returning, just doesn't happen in the modern NFL with a salary cap. So, they may be looking to get some ammunition next year. And again, what's the difference in their eyes between the 32nd pick and say the 50th pick or the 45th pick or somewhere along there? And there are teams that may give up next year's number one to be able to take that number 32 spot, and the Buccaneers move down. Again, it's so interesting. That was a question in the Monday mailbag. Somebody asked me, what's it like not knowing who the Buccaneers are going to pick? Now, we've never 100% known, except for Jameis Winston. We knew that. But other than that, I mean, you don't know. But the NFL and the pundits and the sources we get, we pretty much all kind of know the top 15 guys. We don't know necessarily what order they're going to be in. Sometimes there's a surprise guy, but there's usually consensus 10 or 15. And the Buccaneers are normally picking. So we know one of I'm back. John's back.
Was it you that got out?
I think
Mark
it was.
dropped out. Oh, no.
Remember the little blip? Remember the little blip I was telling about? Well, thank you, Spectrum, at 4:19.
Right there. Yeah. You just talked up Spectrum, and now that I thought it was me. I was like, oh, no, something happened. Yeah. So I just took myself out, and then I'm like, oh, wait, no, I'm still. Oh, no, man. It was me. It's one of those days, man. It's just one of those days with the technical stuff. But you're right on about the Bucs draft, by the way. Like, it is. It's one of those rare years where honestly it's getting, in some ways it's impossible to say the player, but in other ways it's getting easier to narrow down the position, I think, right? Like I think the position is becoming clear to me that they're going to address the lines. I think you have older players on offense or on the defensive side, and on the offensive side, you have players that might not be here next year in Alex Kappa and Ryan Jensen. And I think Aaron Stinnie and Josh Wells are fine depth. But I think that you can upgrade even those kind of spots. You need a center option, behind Jensen. You need a snapper. John Molshin they like. And if they had to go into next season, okay. They had to go into next season like they are now. Okay, they can do it. But the difficulty and I think the struggle for them right now is if we had to do it and somebody got hurt, yes, Stinnie could step in maybe. But if a center got hurt, if Josh Wells had to play a long time, I think it's touch and go at those positions. And even Stinnie, I think he's okay, but I Quinn Miners, if you're telling me Dickerson and Miners would be the first two picks, I would feel unbelievable about this draft. I really would.
And when you're talking about offensive and defensive linemen, really, I think, and I'm going to put you on the spot here. You're going to have to pull this out of your memory bank here because I'm sure you're kind of like Greg Allman, right? You kind of got all the stuff floating around in your head. The bust rate of offensive linemen, I would guess, is probably lower than some other positions, right? I mean, there are some. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. It seems like the Giants always draft a terrible offensive lineman that ends up being a bust, or they've had some guys over the years, and there are a few guys, but I would almost guess that first round offensive linemen tend to last in the league longer than some other positions. So if you don't have a glaring need, that's a safe pick, and it's always going to be a needed pick eventually down the road in my mind. Again, you need 5 of these guys on the offensive line at some point, right? I mean, not at some point, on every snap. So it's not, you don't have 5 cornerbacks on the field very rarely. You don't have 5 receivers on the field very rarely. Certainly not 5 running backs, not 5 quarterbacks, not 5 linebackers. Those trench guys, as you mentioned, I think would be a good move because it's a fairly safe pick in my opinion. I don't think the bust rate is nearly as high on offensive linemen as maybe some other positions. I may be completely wrong. Somebody may prove me wrong, but I don't think so. So go offensive line or defensive line if that's the case. This is John. John dropped out this time. It's not me. Anyway, I'm not going to talk bad about Spectrum. You know why? Because they used to be an advertiser with us. Maybe they want to advertise again. I don't want to have any history of me bad-mouthing Spectrum and then me go and try and sell them an ad deal. And they're like, oh, let's go back to April 13th, 2021, Mr. Cook. Let us play this for you. Yeah, I don't need that there. So, Spectrum, I love you. We would love to have you as a sponsor on pewterreport.com. We would love for the service to be a little bit more reliable in John's area, but we understand it's a new division. Is anybody buying what I'm saying? Anyway, John didn't last long, but at least he gave me a little bit of a break. That's nice. Tom, Bucs fan, he has said Almond has the Bucs drafting Asante Samuel at 32. Will he be available? Yes, he'll be available. In my opinion, he's a Seminole, so I'm not going to advocate or bang the table for him. And it's not just because I don't want to seem like a homer, but he's not my favorite guy. He's a little undersized, in my opinion. But whatever. I can't really judge Florida State players the last couple of years because the coaching has just been so bad. And then you throw in COVID last year, the limited amount of games, the practices, the new scheme with the new coach. I have no idea who's going to be a good football player that's coming from the Seminoles this year. So I'm not going to bang the table. I actually think, Tom, that Almond was quote tweeting somebody else's mock draft and just said they had Asante Samuel. I don't know that Almond had him personally. Maybe he did, but I saw a tweet earlier where he had quote tweeted another mock draft that had the Buccaneers taking Asante Samuel Jr. at number 32. Again, John, mentioned cornerback isn't necessarily a bad position to take if there's the guy that you want is on the board, but I still don't know that the Buccaneers do that again by adding Herb Miller back, re-signing him this year, by having Ross Cockrell back. That kind of solidifies things back in the secondary. I think the safety position obviously is fairly solid, but again, you do have to look ahead. We, as fans and even in the media, we're looking at 2021 because that's what we're going to cover, and that's the team that you're going to cheer for. You're not worrying about cheering for 2022 or 2024 or 2025. I'm not worried about covering those teams right now. It's the team at hand. But Jason Light, Mike Greenberg, John Spytek, Mike Beal, Brian Kiefer, Byron Kiefer, all those guys, they want to be here another 10 years, right? So they're going to have to always be looking ahead. You've got Carlton Davis that'll be in a contract year next year. There's going to be some other free agents. So while there's not any glaring needs as far as starters go, maybe even not glaring needs in terms of depth, you've got to be looking to the fact that what the team was able to do this year by returning so many of their own players just isn't the norm. Now, the salary cap is going to go up quite a bit, obviously, with the new TV deal, which doubled this year. That money is going to be put into the pool, so it's going to go up considerably next year. But still, you're going to end up, you can't keep keeping all of your guys every single year. It just doesn't work that way. So they're going to have to be thinking ahead of time, ahead of what we're thinking. Again, I'm thinking about, how's the team going to do this fall? You, the fan, when you've got your ticket, you're not worried about 2022. You're worried about 2021. But Jason Light and those guys have to do that. So they've got to be looking at the fact, hey, Carlton Davis is in a contract year. This is the last year of Ryan Jensen's year. Chris Godwin, what are we going to do there? He's franchised this year. What if we don't get a long-term deal done? Do we need to draft a receiver? I mean, all of those things are what Jason Light is scratching his head and pulling his hair out right now as his staff is trying to determine the future and what they're going to do in terms of the draft this year. And let's see what Craig Carr said. Craig says, I did a little research. Center is the safest position on the offensive line to draft in round one. I don't remember. I mean, again, I'm sure there have been busts at center, but I can't really remember that many of them. And I think part of that is because when you draft a center, they can also play guard. And sometimes, tackles don't normally move to guard. Tackles never move to center, but centers can move to guard. Guards can move to center at times. And so even if a player isn't working out at center or working out at guard, sometimes a change position can make a big difference, and that can salvage a career and make it a little bit longer. And I think that helps the stats. But Craig, if you really did research on this, I appreciate that. You may be making it up completely. I have no idea, but I like it. Someone super chat Spectrum. We're not going to beat Spectrum up. We're just not going to do it. John is cursing them now, probably, but I'm not going to beat them up because, again, what if they want to be a sponsor one day? Somebody asked, let's see, Squeeze Planet asked, what is Bernard's stats from last year? I don't have, I probably could, but I'm not smart enough to switch screens right now to pull up the story that we wrote about it yesterday when he was signed. I'm sure the stats are in there, but somebody on the chat right now, if you don't mind, look up his stats for last season. Let's take a look at where he was. And somebody earlier in the chat confirmed that that he was the third. He had caught the third most passes in the NFL, I think, since 2013. So that's good for the Buccaneers. Now, they didn't tell me who else besides Celsius was ad read today. So I'm going to talk to you about my good friends real quick at BriarGrieves. Now, this is what I need from you people, my good friends out there in the listening audience. I need you guys to call BriarGrieves. You know why? Because you need insurance. There's not anybody listening that doesn't need some type of insurance right now. It's not fun. It's not sexy. It takes a few minutes. You got to go pull out your deck page. You got to actually remember to make the call. But they're available right now for you to give them a call. If not now, call them first thing in the morning. But find out if Briar or Sam can save you some money. I'm telling you, homeowners rates are going through the roof in the state of Florida. The Tampa Bay Times had a big article, I believe it was Monday, front page article about the crisis with homeowners insurance in the state of Florida. Make sure that you have a good company, one that's going to be around for a long time, but also find the one that's going to save you the most money. And that's where BriarGrieves can do that. But it's not just homeowners insurance. It's also automobile insurance. It's also liability insurance. Maybe you have a business. All of those things are things that we need insurance for. Even if you don't own a home, own a business, or care about your life, you probably rent a place. You want renter's insurance. What if the neighbor's toilet bursts upstairs and the water comes down? Yes, the building itself will be protected under insurance, but you have to protect your contents. And I'm telling you right now, from experience, renter's insurance, usually less than $200 for the entire year. Call BriarGrieves, Briar or Sam, area code 813-876-4166. Again, 876-4166. Most importantly, when you do call them, let them know that you heard it on the Pewter Report podcast. So anyway, please do that if you can. I would appreciate it. Sam and Briar would appreciate it. We've got to patronize these Pewter Report sponsors because those are the ones that are keeping the lights on. And we've talked about COVID and how it affected our business. Last year, things are looking much better this year. But we want to keep these sponsors. And the way that we do that is for you guys to patronize them. Even if you don't have insurance needs at the present moment, give them a call and thank them for I'm getting calls all over my phone now. Let me turn my phone off too, because that's rude. But thank BriarGrieves for being a sponsor of the Pewter Nation podcast. Anyway, I'm going to answer this text so people stop calling me on the podcast. Do not disturb me again. See that? Anyway. These things didn't happen when we used to pre-tape these things. These live things, man, all kind of things happen. Warren Sapp drops off. He can't get here on time. His connection was awful. John's dropping off. I got people calling me. And anyway, everybody's going crazy right now. And I'm trying to fly solo right now. But what I appreciate is all you guys with the questions and things like that right now. Anyway, let's just go through some more questions now. Pick 32 here. I'm sorry, I'm not good at this. I got to remember to pull up the question so everybody else can read it. Pick 32 should be a player with pedigree. I mean, if you're saying pedigree, meaning a guy that's coming from a bigger name program, that's an experienced starter, not taking a gamble on a player. I see where you're coming from as far as that goes. But I personally, if a team is crazy enough to offer up, a number one next year and they're number two this year, I would do it. I would do it in a second. I don't know if anybody will, but we'll see. Again, the advantage to being at the end of the first round is there's not a whole lot of difference normally between the 32nd player and the 52nd player as far as the way teams put guys up on their board. So if you can, pick up an extra draft pick and still move down and get a guy that's still in your wheelhouse, why not do it? I saw Ren Dax on here. If Ren's on here, I'm always going to click on Ren's question. I'm not going to pre-read it, so hopefully it's not a rude question. It's a valid question. If a team needs a player at a certain position and are not in the draft, shouldn't other steps have been taken? If a team needs players at a certain position that are not in the draft, shouldn't other steps have been taken? That may be a response to somebody else in the chat. I'm not sure exactly what Ren is saying right there. Maybe you guys can figure it out amongst the chat. Let's see. Amazes me that a team like the Detroit Lions don't offer Gabbert or Griffin a small deal to be QB 2 or 3, just to see if they pick anything useful off of Brady or the staff. Interesting. Here's something that I did learn. It's not huge breaking news. And you guys know this too. Buccaneers, at the current moment, do not have a backup quarterback. And that's something that the Buccaneer brass, I spoke to somebody in their organization just yesterday about this specifically. It's a little concerning right now. And I don't know the details of what Blaine Gabbert's agent is asking for, or even Ryan Griffin's agent. I don't even know if they're interested in bringing Ryan Griffin back, but they certainly would like to see Blaine Gabbert back, but he's not back. And I think what I'm speculating from the conversation I had, this did not come from this person specifically, but from what they told me, it seems like Gabbert's group may be asking for more money. And you know what? That happens sometimes when a team wins the Super Bowl. There he is.
It's because Scott blew up his stock. That's why. Scott blew up Gabbert's stock. Now Gabbert's agent and them listened, and they're like, "Oh wow, this guy could be like a Hall of Famer still." And in Scott Reynolds' eyes,
we laugh about that, but I spoke to somebody specifically about that yesterday, John, and that's really the vibe that I was getting is that and it's kind of becoming a concern for this football team right now. That they don't have a backup quarterback on the roster at all right now. Now, Tom Brady has proven over his 20-year career to be a fairly durable guy, right? Mm-hmm. I think he had 1 year. He had obviously one season where he was banged up pretty good, had a knee injury. I don't remember what year that was, but for the most part, he stays healthy. This offensive line did a good job of protecting him, but we've seen guys get injured in the weight room before. You just don't know what's going to happen. So you've got to have that backup guy. Although, John, I'll say this. The NFL, you don't see the Jeff Hostetler coming in and saving the day and winning Super Bowls as a backup quarterback anymore. That was back in 1991. I mean, it just doesn't happen very often. If we lose, I just said we, like I'm a fan. Somebody slap me.
You've been on here too long riding solo.
That's rule number one. Never say we. I've yelled at Taylor over the years, and Matt and Zach Shapiro and Gil Garcia.
I've accidentally said it a time or two on I've said it a time or two on the air by accident. I don't remember covering the Bucs, maybe still. I don't remember, but it is an important position. There's no question, even if it's not going to be Brady in the caliber play, obviously. You do what you can and build around whoever you get in there, obviously, in the lineup. And so, yes, it's very important. You know what else is important, Mark? What? I want to say this before my internet drops me out again. Oh, by the way, I got off the phone with Spectrum. They're lost. They have no idea what the problem could be because everything's great, but they're sending somebody out here that's going to call me shortly. So if I have to jump out, that's why. But also, Playbook Products. That's what's important. This touchdown by Scotty Miller against the Green Bay Packers in the NFC Championship, that is what is important. Also, these coasters. These coasters are amazing. They're like stone coasters. They got the play on there. You probably can't see that well because of the lighting against the screen, but that's the Rob Gronkowski touchdown, the second one against Kansas City in the Super Bowl. Awesome, awesome stuff from Playbook Products. Check out their coasters. Check out their mugs. They're beautiful stuff. They've got like the score on there and the field where it was, the date, the time, the quarter. I mean, it's really, really good stuff. And by the way, if you're not a Bucs fan, or if you're a bigger fan of another team, the Lightning, they've got their stuff on there too. I'm telling you,
Yeah,
man,
and
their
you can
stuff is
pick
good.
whatever play you want, right? I mean, it doesn't just have to
Yeah.
be the Scotty Miller or the Gronk. I mean, you know, if
There's
you
a couple.
want,
They have a handful of plays to choose from. Yeah, it plays in history. When Ronde Barber's pick six shut down the
yeah.
bet, they've got that one. And so, yeah, there's a lot of plays in there. It's a really good product.
Do they
Definitely
have the
check them out.
Cyril Grayson ball that bounced
They
off his
don't
face
have that
mask
one.
play?
Scott might have to have him special
Yeah.
order that one for Scott. Maybe we'll have to have him special order that one. For
How
Scott
do people
National Bosses Day.
find these guys? How
Go
do they find them?
playbookproducts.com,
Yep.
baby. Playbookproducts.com. You can check out all their stuff. Search for whatever team you're looking for products on, but they do some really cool and creative work. So definitely.
Father's Day is coming up in a couple months. Mother's Day is coming up. Make a great gift.
Yes, great gifts indeed, for sure. Have we talked about Gio Bernard and how much
A little
have we
bit,
talked about him?
Okay. Not nearly enough. Not nearly enough. I want you to talk a little bit about Giovani.
But based on the way this thing's gone, I've got about 2 minutes before my internet drops out again inexplicably. And so I just want to talk about Giovani Bernard. I was trying to put some clips in the chat and here for us to use in the show in the chat section for people to check out. I got 2 of them in there before my internet got out on me. But here's Gio Bernard picking up an A-gap blitz. No problem. One of the big thumpers in the NFL, BJ Goodson, picks it up. I have a bunch more clips like that in the Giovani Bernard piece that I put up on pewterreport.com. Make sure you check that out. And then here's him at the top of your screen as an outside receiver running a slant against a corner, getting open, running away from a safety, finding space, getting vertical, getting the first down. Those are just 2 plays. There's a lot more if you check out the article. There's even more if you have NFL Game Pass and want to check out the tape. As I watched this guy, I got emotional because I realized this was the missing piece, Mark, for the Bucs. I don't have to watch, barring injury, God help us. I don't have to watch Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones try to figure things out as receivers and pass protectors anymore. Giovani Bernard is the real deal.
My impression of those guys trying to catch balls.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Giovani Bernard. I mean, people have asked in the chat, I've seen, is he better than James White? I think he's a better option for this team than James White. And I would know he was available when we did our battle plans. Obviously, at that point in time, he was not. But because he's a better pass protector, because he also is held up really well physically over his career. Never been a big workload guy, neither is White. But Bernard has that body armor. You know, that's the way that he's built. Again, I think because of the pass protection, but also they both are good receivers. There's no question. Bernard was really good last year. I don't know where White's at. He may be on that decline. I'm not sure where he's at. He could be great this season. He might be a little more elusive. Bernard has terrific vision, terrific feel in space, reliable hands, really good routes. I don't think people realize that Giovani Bernard played the 4th most snaps out wide of any running back in the league last season and the 5th most from the slot. And so this is a guy who has a ton of experience being split out and running routes from that position, and probably 5 or 6 of his best plays as a receiver came from that alignment. So flexibility-wise, he gives you the added dimension of being able to do things with your personnel packages that will hearken people back to when David Johnson was suiting up for Bruce Arians and having 800 yards in a season. Now, Barnard's not going to have 800 yards receiving this season, but he has a chance to make a real impact in the yards that he does get. He's going to be a nice addition to this offense. It's such a quiet move, but it's such a good move. And Jason Light just continues to kill it. I think it's the perfect player for this team. In high character, durable, the work ethic, the football IQ. Listen to Bengals fans. I mean, they don't like anything. I mean, I can't blame them. They love this guy, and they are rooting for him. I saw Joe Goodberry, one of the best Bengal analysts out there. They're like, man, I'm gonna get a Bucs Gio jersey if they win the Super Bowl with him there. Like they just love the guy. I think Bucs fans are gonna love him too.
Did you just call them the Bengals or the Bengals?
I call them the Bengals. I'm not a Bengals guy.
But a lot
of native Pittsburghese is Bengals. They call them,
Bengals,
right. Or the Bungles. Yeah. That was the thing for a while too when they were at their lowest. The Bungles.
Well, and you know what? He's got to feel like he just won the lottery, not the financial lottery. But again, I hope Cincinnati does well. I'm a big fan of what they did at quarterback last year. But at the same time, I mean, they're not going to be a very good football team this year. And for Bernard to be able to go to a place where he has a legitimate opportunity to win a Super Bowl, that's good for him. I mean, he's been in the league for a long time. He deserves that opportunity. John, are you frozen again? It's kind of creepy how his face just completely freezes like that. That means he's going to drop off at any second. And it probably already has. So, well, he got his 2 minutes in as far as that goes. We've talked about our good friends at Celsius. We've talked about BriarGrieves. We've talked about Playbook. What else do you want to talk about? This is already a complete train wreck disaster of a podcast. So let's just keep this thing going. What the heck? I could sign off now. We could keep taking questions. We could chat. You guys tell us what you want to do. I got nothing to do for the rest of the night. Well, that's not true. I have to get Behind Enemy Lines ready for tomorrow. And by the way, does anybody read Behind Enemy Lines? It's not the most well-read story every week, but I think it's a fun story for me. I like to know what the Bucs NFC South opponents are doing. It's an interesting thing to me. That's why I started doing that story last year. So I encourage you on Wednesdays to check out Behind Enemy Lines. Again, I just go through the rumors and the notes and what's going on. I go to all the teams' websites. I go to the pewter reports of, say, the Panthers and the Falcons and the Saints, try and find little tidbits and things like that. So hopefully you'll check out our good. Check out the article tomorrow, Behind Enemy Lines. Somebody just asked me this question here. Now, they're not a sponsor anymore, but maybe they will be again one day. Long Lost Glazer said, last time you've been to Ford's Garage. I was actually at Ford's Garage about 2 weeks ago. One of my best friends, one of my high school buddies, lives in Hawaii now. He surfs, does everything that I wish I could do, lives on the North Shore of Hawaii. He's got a wife, got the life, has his own little business, surfs when he wants to, but he came into town because his mother wasn't doing real well. But anyway, we got together, and I actually took him over to Ford's Garage. It'd been a little while since I'd been there, but we had a really good time. So has nothing to do with the Buccaneers, really nothing to do with this podcast, but we're on bonus time right now is the way I'm looking at it. Ford's Garage still good. I actually had dinner at Glory Days last night. They are a Pewter Report sponsor. I want to go check out Benedetto's, the Italian restaurant up towards Wesley Chapel area. That's not Wesley Chapel. I guess maybe it is. Anyway, I want to go check them out too, because the problem is with Italian food, high carbohydrates and things like that. And trying to lose some weight here, get rid of this quarantine 20 that I've gained. Plus, got to watch that blood sugar, got to check it often. There's no reason not to. Me and Wilford Brimley will tell you the truth about that. What else do we got here? Ben Noble says, per Behind Enemy Lines, I like the article, but they aren't doing anything of note. That's not true, man. I dig and find little things. Unfortunately, you're right. There's not nearly as much going on this time of year. But what I'm probably going to do for tomorrow is look at who, the draft needs of the NFC South opponents and try and plug in where they may go. I already know right now the Atlanta Falcons, Terry Fontenot, their GM, this is going to be one of the leads in Behind Enemy Lines, is saying they like Matt Ryan, but they've got to explore other quarterbacks. And the Falcons are in a weird position. I mean, they owe Matt Ryan a ton of money this year. They owe him a ton next year. And he's still a pretty good football player. But there's a little bit of division between Arthur Smith, the new head coach, and Terry Fontenot. Fontenot wants to look more towards the quarterback area, whereas Arthur Smith is like, no, Matt Ryan is fine. We can win with Matt Ryan. We need to spend our resources at other positions. But wouldn't be shocking to see the Falcons draft a quarterback early. Don't know that I would if I were them. It just depends on how much they're in love with one of these guys. I think they're picking number 4, so they really hold some good cards in terms of what they're able to do. They can move down because there'll be a quarterback available that somebody wants that's willing to move up. But maybe they're in love with that guy just as much and want to draft him. We'll see what they do there. Ray Grange says, I clicked on the wrong one, but we'll answer this one. Any other teams looking at the Alabama center? Yeah, a lot of them are. The question with Landon Dickerson, and this will go back to his Florida State days. He started as a true freshman at Florida State. I wasn't a big fan, but of course that offensive line has been bad since Jameis Winston was there, to be honest with you. They've just been a really bad unit, one of the worst in college football over the last 5 or 6 years. And so it was kind of unfair to pin that all on Dickerson. But he was a high recruit, came in, started as a true freshman, had high expectations, but he was injured. He started his freshman year, was injured. His next year, he was injured, came back and played like 3 games the following year, injured again, ended up going to Alabama, stayed healthy until the SEC championship game. I think it was SEC championship game against Florida where he tore his ACL. And again, the question is, I would like to have asked John this, but I'll ask you guys this in the chat too. People talk about players that are injury prone. I don't know medically if that's true, right? Is that an actual thing? I mean, is it the black cloud follows the guy? Is that more along the lines, or physically is their body just not able to hold up? I would tend to look more at guys who have had multiple knee injuries as opposed to a guy who had an elbow dislocation, then an ACL, then a concussion. Again, three completely different things. If you continue to have the same injury at the same part of the body, I would tend to say they're more injury prone, but I don't know that that's been Dickerson's case. But that is a little bit of a concern. The good news is if the Buccaneers did draft him, then he would, he's not going to have to play this year. They've got Ryan Jensen under contract. His body can get healthy. He can spend a year getting well. Again, though, I think you can take a gamble, even if you feel that he is a little injury prone. I think you can take a gamble on a guy like Landon at number 32. You don't do it at number 10. You don't do it at number 15. But again, I'm going to keep saying it. A number 32 pick is essentially a second-round draft pick in the NFL. So you can gamble a little bit more there. Let's see. What else? Where was Grange at? I missed. There he is. There he is. Brian. No, Ray. Team no carbs. That's my man right there. Except you look very, very thin and skinny, and you don't look like you have diabetes. So you're probably just doing it so you can get all buffed out and cut. Me, I'm doing it so I don't fall over dead. Anyway, but appreciate the comment, Ray. Let's keep it up. No carbs. I need people to encourage me on that. Let's see. Some players play through injuries like JPP or Brady for that matter. No doubt about it. I mean, you're not playing through an ACL, but we know JPP has played with, torn meniscuses and things like that. So some guys just love to play football, and you got to drag them off the football field. Somebody asking again about Gabbert. We talked a little bit about that. Right now, from what we understand, this is speculation based on some conversation we've had. Maybe he's pricing himself like Antonio Brown a little bit higher than what he's worth. And certainly there's not a lot of people banging down the door for Blaine Gabbert, or else he would have signed with somebody else. Same thing with Antonio Brown. I mean, if these guys had a ton of teams looking for him, they would have already signed. So anyway, I don't know. I would love to see Gabbert back. But again, as I was going to say earlier, when I accidentally said we, like I'm a fan, wink, wink. The Buccaneers, they've got to have a backup quarterback, certainly. Blaine Gabbert maybe comes back here. But if this football team is relying on Blaine Gabbert, they're not going to win a Super Bowl. There, I said it. Sorry. I like you, Blaine. Actually, let me tell you the Blaine Gabbert story that I was going to tell you with Scott a few weeks ago that we never got to on the podcast. I don't want to do the whole Chuck Berry thing where it took Scott like 6 months to actually tell the story. I'm actually going to tell the story, and I don't know that anybody's still even on listening right now because we're in bonus time right now of this train wreck of a disaster of a podcast. But here's my Blaine Gabbert story. I like Blaine. Tough guy, right? We remember him in the preseason his first year when he scrambled. I can't remember who they were playing. I think it was the third preseason game. Dove for a first down and separated his shoulder. Now, Scott's told this story. Before he could have went to the hospital to have his shoulder pop back in. He could have taken some pain medication. Basically, he told the trainer, just give me a dip of Copenhagen and pop it back in place. And that's what he did. That leads me to my part of the story. So I'm a former Copenhagen long cut can a day addict, right? I've backed off of that, only doing pouches now and slowly tapering off again for health reasons. And I'm trying to quit. So I don't do it anymore. But anybody who's ever chewed or dipped before knows that people ask you for a dip, and you always watch what they do when they ask you for your can. They're going to take out just a pinch like Earl Campbell. Or they're going to do a 2-finger dip. Some guys like Warren Sapp, who has basically taken half of my can at a time, 3-finger dip one time. You kind of keep an eye on that. Well, anyway, this goes back to open locker room a couple of years ago. We had just got an open locker room. Blaine Gabbert come in off the practice field. And anyway, we were sitting around talking, and I had my can, or he saw my can in my pocket. And he's like, hey, man, let me grab a dip from you. And I was like, okay, no problem. So Gabbert took my can, which was almost completely full. And again, people that chew, which you shouldn't, I'm not advocating it. Quit if you haven't, but and don't start if you haven't started yet. But he took the can and proceeded to get a 3-finger dip out, which is like probably a third of the can. And he stuck it in his jaw. Big dip. No problem. It's Blaine Gabbert. Makes $1 million a year. I don't make anywhere near that. Dip $7 a can now. I'm okay. It's Blaine Gabbert bar in my can. That's better than, Joe Schmo off the street bar in my can. I can say I gave Blaine Gabbert a dip. Okay. That's not the story. The story is Blaine puts the dip in. I'm okay with it being a 3-finger dip. What made me mad is about maybe not even 5 minutes later, he's going to the shower. He's got his towel over his shoulder. He's got his body wash soap. And right before he goes in the shower, he takes the dip out and throws it in the trash can. Dude, you took a 3-finger dip to only chew for like 2 minutes, and you didn't even bother to bring me a can the next day. That's what we have to say. That's not dip etiquette. If you're going to take a big dip out of a man's can, number one, you ought to say, hey, I'll bring you a can tomorrow. Number two, if you are going to do it, don't chew it for like 3 minutes and then spit it out. He could have taken a small pinch, but no. Again, I guess these millionaires don't appreciate the value of a can of tobacco. And again, the numbers are just dropping drastically as we're rambling on about nothing at this point. Actually, I'm just kidding. No, the numbers are staying up pretty good right now. So there you go. No more chewing. That's what I'm going to try and do. And I hope you guys aren't chewing. It's a nasty habit. Anybody who's ever chewed, this is the question I have. Why did we ever take the second one? Because the first one kicked our ass so bad. We all remember that first one. Remember the Sandlot when they put the chew in and they went to the fair and they were spinning around and puking? That's what you do. Everybody gets sick on the very first dip. I don't understand why we ever took the second dip. But anyway, once you take the second one, then it's a problem. So as John D. Riley said, say no to drugs. Yes, tobacco is a drug. Say no to it. Let's see. What else do we got? Dip etiquette is so contradictory considering the whole I love you guys. Considering the whole idea of spit bottles. Yeah, again, another reason I'm quitting is because that's really a disgusting habit. And I will say with the pouches, you don't spit nearly as much. And so you don't have, cups all over the place. I think we all can probably, at any point, I probably should check my thing because Scott and John are probably saying, get the hell off the podcast. No, they haven't banned me yet. We can all say that we've all been at a party in our younger days when we picked up a beer can and just took a swig and somebody put their cigarette butt in it. That's bad. But I can assure you, it's not nearly as bad as picking up a beer bottle or a Coke bottle or a cup that you think has got a drink in it and taking a swallow of it. And it was actually your spit cup. Yeah, that's very disgusting and gross. So don't do it. Baseball players are big chewers. Certainly, that's true. All right, let's quit talking about chew. Let's see what else we got here. Michael Henderson, I'm not going to put your comment up. That's inappropriate. Will Brewer says, Mark, you got the circle worn out on your back pocket. I used to when I wore dungarees, as my granny called them, but they're jeans. I don't wear jeans. I wear shorts. Or I actually do have one pair of jeans, but I think they're still bell bottoms. That's how long it's been since I've wore jeans on a regular basis. I would have bet my life Mark vapes. You look exactly like each of the 5 people who have died from vaping. Long Lost Glazer, I really like you a lot, but that's just mean, man. That's just not cool at all. Not a vapor. No, none of those things. Anyway, all right, here's a football question. Let's go with this. If OJ finally plays 16 at a high level, is he tight end 1 in 22? Yeah. I mean, I think so. I mean, they picked up his 5th-year option this year. This team certainly hasn't given up on OJ at all. And, I follow OJ on social media. I contact him every once in a while. He's doing a really good job. He looks like he's really healthy. I think Coach Arians said on our last time that we spoke to him that he's beginning to run. He's doing a lot of things now. Recovering from that Achilles injury, which is a tough injury to recover from. Some guys bounce back really quick. Some guys, it takes a little bit longer. Hopefully OJ is ready to go at the start of training camp this year for the Buccaneers. I certainly wouldn't want to see him out there during any of the OTAs and things like that. If there are OTAs, by the way, if you haven't seen, the Denver Broncos have already decided that they're all, I don't know if the word boycott is correct, but they are not going to participate in-person OTAs this year. And the NFLPA is highly encouraging NFL teams to do another virtual offseason this year because of COVID concerns. So while the Broncos are the first team, I believe, that have said we're not going to show up in the building if you expect us to, expect other teams to follow suit, and that may be the Buccaneers as well, but we just don't know anything as far as that goes yet. But O.J. Howard, again, a talented football player, has just struggled really with injuries. We remember that year a couple years ago that he was having a great year and just a fluke tackle. Again, is O.J. Howard injury prone? I remember his rookie season when he got knocked out. It was a late game, I think a Thursday night game against Atlanta, maybe a Monday night game, but it was a national TV game. And he caught a ball near the end zone. He may have scored on it. I don't remember. But the guy dove and clipped his ankle, and he was out for the last couple games. A couple years ago, he had that injury against the Giants. Caught a pass, was tackled, just kind of an awkward tackle, and hurt his knee, out for the year. Last season, the Achilles injury. Again, that's, there are 3 different injuries, 3 different parts of his body. So I don't know you can call him injury prone. Probably more just bad luck, right? I mean, the black cloud that's hanging over him in the injury realm is hurting him a little bit. But I think certainly, I don't know that Gronk plays another year. If Gronk were to come back, and OJ had a good year this upcoming season, then I think both guys would be back. But I don't know that you can pay both of them tight end one money, and that's the question. OJ certainly is younger, but he needs to put 16 games behind him, be able to play that, even if it's not here in Tampa Bay, for him to go out and earn as much money as possible down the road with another football team. And I agree, Kevin. That's what I was kind of saying. He's had kind of 2 fluky tackles that caused injury, so he's really not injury prone. I agree with that. Let's see what we've got here. Why are there a lot of Bucs fans saying to sign Edelman when he just said the wheels have fallen off? The wheels had fallen off Rob Gronkowski, honestly. Now, the question is not the question, but the difference is Edelman, he didn't have a year off before he came back, if he were to come back. So I don't know if he's lost the love for the game. He certainly had injuries over the years. He's not the biggest guy in the world to begin with. He's getting up there in age. I tend to believe that Julian Edelman is done with football. But if there were a situation that were to lure him out of retirement, this would be it. I hear a lot of people that cover, I'm just going to put these up without reading them, so hopefully they're not rude. I hear a lot of people that cover Bucs media refer to this draft with a lot of flexibility, and I get that idea. However, this draft could be a super helpful to alleviate cap concerns in 1 or 2 years. You're absolutely right, John. You're absolutely right, John D. Riley. No question about it. I mean, that's what we were talking about earlier. Got to be looking down the road. I mean, what are you going to do about Chris Godwin? What are you going to do about Carlton Davis? What are you going to do about Rob Gronkowski on a 1-year deal? What are you going to do about Tom Brady? Again, how long is he going to play? And so the question is, you do have to be looking ahead, and this could be the draft that answers a lot of questions. As you guys remember, I actually wrote back in January. Yes, January, the Buccaneers should consider a guy like Kyle Trask. He's in that second-tier quarterback range. Again, at 32, it's not, if he doesn't pan out, it's not like you took him top 5 or number 1 overall like you did Jameis Winston in 2015. I don't think it sets back your franchise for years to come, like making a mistake in the top 5 with the quarterback. But Kyle Trask may be that guy that is still there at 32 that the Buccaneers may consider. We do know the Buccaneers do like him. They were at his pro day. I've heard some people in the organization comp him to a Brad Johnson, and that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to get a Brad Johnson type quarterback that plays as long as he did and has as much success in the league as Brad did at number 32. And again, who better to sit behind and learn for a year or two than Tom Brady? Now, I will say this, talking to some people who have covered Kyle Trask, my good friend Matt Baker over at the Tampa Bay Times talked to Matt a while back when I was writing that story, and he said, Kyle has a lot of intangibles that teams like, but he's not a rah-rah guy, right? You're not going to see Kyle Trask pull a Brady at the Chicago, screaming at guys on the sideline. That's just not his thing. He's more of a quiet, lead-by-example guy, but that is kind of similar to Brad Johnson, but he's tough as nails. He does wear orange and blue, which I can't stand, but, once they graduate or once they leave school or declare for the draft, I don't care anymore about where they come from. I don't know. Kyle Trask isn't the worst choice there if the Buccaneers decide that they want to do that. I just don't know exactly what they're going to do. Ty T says he would rather have Kellen Mond than Trask. A lot of people are saying that more and more. I mean, here's a guy that I watched play at Texas A&M because I followed Jimbo Fisher. I wanted to see him do terrible after he left Florida State the way he did. But I still like Jimbo because what he did for the program, taking over Bobby Bowden and leading back to respectability and certainly the national championship in 2013. So I do respect Jimbo Fisher. But anyway, I watched a lot of Texas A&M. Mon was not a guy that just jumped off the charts to me. He was a guy that could be very frustrating at times, a streaky quarterback at times. But the one thing that I do like about him is each year that he started, he got better. His completion percentage improved every time. And he got good quarterback coaching, I think, from Jimbo Fisher. So Mond, I don't know where. I don't think at 32. There are some pundits now that really have him moving up high on teams' draft boards. So we'll see about that. Anyway, all right, let's get out of here. Let's do one more question. No, let's don't. You guys are tired of me, even though the numbers are hanging in there. I apologize for the poor quality of this podcast. Was it poor? I had fun. Anyway, I appreciate everybody that joined in and tuned in. I appreciate our sponsors, certainly at Celsius, Playbook, also our good friends over at BriarGrieves. Make sure to give BriarGrieves a call, 813-876-4166. Give them a call and let them compare and try and save you some money on your current insurance. But anyway, appreciate everybody that tuned in. John had some technical difficulties. We called an audible, had me do it live, and pretty much do it by myself. Hopefully it wasn't the worst possible thing that you've seen today. It probably was, but maybe not. Anyway, appreciate everybody that joined the chat, everybody who tuned in, and everybody who's going to download and listen to this later. We certainly appreciate it. For Scott Reynolds, Matt Matera, Taylor Grizz Jenkins, and the terribly interneted John Ledyard, I'm Mark Cook, saying we will see you tomorrow with another edition of the Pewter Report Podcast.